weeknights at 6.
On ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Richard Threlkel.
Good evening. The worst wildfires in a decade are scorching 7 western states tonight, threatening, among other things, California's stand of giant sequoia trees. At least 8,000 people have been forced to leave their homes. 17,000 firefighters from all over the country are fighting those fires. But as Gary Shepard reports from Central California, even they aren't enough.
This is the most serious fire now burning. More than 50,000 acres have already been destroyed since it erupted last weekend when lightning strikes ignited Tinder Drive brush and timberland. The flames are still out of control. Firefighters have been rushed here from all over the country to battle the inferno, which is raging in the Stanislaus National Forest in the foothills of the California Sierras. Some fire crews have had little sleep and no help at all from the hot, dry winds that develop every afternoon and fan the flames.
It does get frustrating times when it jumps your line after you've worked so hard to make that line, and then you look back and you just got to go back and do it all over again.
But despite the huge numbers of firefighters here, they are spread incredibly thin because so much acreage is burning. And in many areas, unless homes are threatened, nobody is available to put them out. This home was destroyed last evening. All that's left is the tin roof. Several other buildings were also lost.
Fairgrounds have been set up as an evacuation location.
Last night, a state of emergency was declared and more residents were ordered to evacuate. Nearly 6,000 people have now been forced out of their homes by the advancing flames. Many of them are being given temporary shelter at a nearby fairground.
Like I say, I've been through floods, and I've been through hurricanes, and I've been through earthquakes. This is the first fire, and I hope it's the last one.
California is not the only state hit by fires this week. As many as 1,600 are burning throughout the West. Nearly 250,000 acres have been blackened. In southern Oregon, this fire has scorched thousands of acres. 10 buildings have been burned, nearly 3,000 people forced to flee, and there's no sign of relief. There was so much smoke here in California's gold rush country this morning, the sun was barely visible, and air tanker drops of fire retardant, like these, had to be canceled. The fire has doubled in size since yesterday, and one estimate is, if the dry weather continues as forecast, it will be out of control for at least another week. Gary Shepard, ABC News, Tuolumne, California.
It is every pilot's bad dream, and maybe every passenger's too. You're in a plane, high in the sky, and suddenly you fall right out of the plane in midair. Well, that really happened last night to the pilot of a commuter plane en route from Lewiston, Maine to Boston to pick up its passengers. ABC's Ned Potter tells us what happened.
The plane was just off the coast of Portland, Maine, when the pilot, Henry Dempsey, noticed a rattling sound from the back of the cabin. The plane was a Beech 99 commuter with an interior like this. When Dempsey went back to check the problem, the airline says the rear door came ajar, and the next thing he knew, he was outside the plane, clinging to the exit stairs for dear life. Co-pilot Paul Bushy was flying the plane at 190 miles an hour, 5,000 feet up, 10 minutes from Portland.
Yes, sir. It's a clear emergency at this time. The captain was just sucked out through the back door, through the cabin door.
Bushy came around for an emergency landing, fully believing that his partner had fallen into the Atlantic and died.
First officer, being prudent and following procedure as he did, when that door flew open and his first officer did not return, assumed the worst and took all the measures that were attempted.
Bushy brought the plane down at the Portland airport. Emergency crews rushed onto the runway and found to their surprise that Dempsey was still gripping the rear stairway.
What's the status out there? Are both crewmen there, or did they lose one out over the water? The stairs were down. There was a person laying on the stairs.
As I was administering to his hands, he was wondering if he'd ever play his guitar again. I asked if he had lost anything else while he was in flight, and he said he lost his hat. He said he thought somebody might be able to find that out over Cape Elizabeth.
The FAA says it can't imagine how Dempsey managed to hold on for the 10 minutes it took to land. Reportedly, Dempsey was holding on so tightly that he had to be pried loose from the plane. But somehow, the only injury he'd suffered was a cut hand. Ned Potter, ABC News.
Federal safety officials said today that the near miss between a Delta and Continental jet over the Atlantic 2 months ago was a lot closer than anybody thought. The Delta jet missed the Continental plane by just 30 feet. and they say the Delta pilots, who were 60 miles off course, made no effort to verify their position, didn't even have the proper charts to guide them. Later in this broadcast, more attacks on shipping in the Gulf, the escalating fight over the nomination of Robert Bork to the Supreme Court, and our series on the Pope in America, the Church and homosexuality.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Bayer Aspirin.
Dan Miller waited a long time to see this. He almost missed it. Not long ago, Dan had a heart attack. Since then, his doctor prescribed a regimen of exercise, the right foods, and an aspirin a day. Studies with people who had a heart attack or unstable angina show aspirin can help prevent heart attacks.
He was always there when I needed him.
Maybe it could help you. See your doctor. He knows what's right for you. This message brought to you by Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes has a unique crunch that I don't hear with any other cereal.
Kellogg's Cornflake Crunch. That's what that was.
You just pour them in a bowl, pour some milk over them, get your spoon, and just munch out.
Crunch.
The crunch makes it taste better.
I have to work hard to keep my mouth closed because it's so noisy.
Corn Flakes from Kellogg's. What more could you want from a cereal?
Well, you have to get excited over something. Why not Kellogg's Corn Flakes? It's a great cereal.
The Secretary General of the United Nations is expected to embark on a mission to Iran to try to get an answer on whether Iran intends to comply with the UN call for a ceasefire. This is another group of American protected tankers which began the dangerous trip south through the Gulf. There were more attacks on both sides today, while yesterday's targets have now made it safe for repairs. We have two reports now, beginning with ABC's Jim Hickey in the Gulf.
Crippled by Iranian rocket-propelled grenades, the Greek oil tanker Daphne was towed into port today. The Daphne was one of 6 ships attacked in the Gulf yesterday, while Iran and Iraq continue the tit-for-tat tanker war. 3 more ships were reported hit today. Iraq claims its warplanes near the Iranian coast fired on a very large naval target. That's usually Iraqi code for supertanker. A Japanese tanker and an Italian cargo ship were ambushed by Iranian-type speedboats. A crewman aboard the Italian vessel said his captain suffered a broken leg.
He saw a speedy motor launch with 3 or 4 men on board, and they fired.
The number of ships attacked since last weekend is averaging more than 3 a day. For some ship owners and crews, the odds are getting just too high, and they are beginning to question the wisdom of sailing these waters. The men who live and work aboard these ships are paid well. But George Sokolis quit his job as third engineer on a Greek tanker because it's now too dangerous.
Everybody's scared because we play our life like game, you know.
This Japanese vessel sits at anchor outside the Gulf today. Japanese ship owners have temporarily stopped sailing here, a difficult decision because Japan gets 50% of its oil from this region. Elsewhere, however, the oil trade continues. In Kuwait, 2 tankers, reflagged with the American Stars and Stripes, prepared to load after being escorted here by the U.S. Navy this week. 3 of their sister ships are now under Navy escort headed south, as American sailors once again run the Gulf Gauntlet. Jim Hickey, ABC News, in the Gulf.
This is John McWethy. The UN Security Council is expected to vote tomorrow to send Secretary General Perez de Cuellar to Iran and Iraq in an effort to stop the war. His instructions: get an answer from Iran, yes or no, on whether it will abide by the UN resolution passed in July calling for a ceasefire and a negotiated end to the war. Iraq has already said yes if Iran does. In addition, Perez de Cuellar will ask on his own that both sides stop shooting during his visit. The Secretary General has been trying to go to Iran to get an answer for more than a month, but not until earlier this week did he finally get an invitation, one that indicated Iran would be willing to discuss the issue. American officials who are sure that Iran will not give a yes or no response were delighted at this latest development and were more than willing to postpone the Friday deadline established earlier in the week.
We need a definitive response. That in the absence of that, it is still our intention to move ahead on sanctions, as we have said.
Sanctions, of course, mean an arms embargo against Iran, something the administration believes it has a chance of winning in the UN after the Perez de Cuellar trip. John McWethy, ABC News, the State Department.
In Moscow, this was the second day of the trial of Matthias Rust. He's the West German teenager who flew that small private plane all the way from Finland to Moscow 3 months ago. As ABC's Walter Rogers reports, the prosecutor seems inclined to throw the book at the young pilot.
The Soviet judge, Robert Tikhomirov, challenged Matthias Rust's claim that his flight to Moscow last May was a peace mission. And in his closing remarks, the prosecutor, Vladimir Andreev, asked the judge to sentence the 19-year-old West German pilot to 8 years for violating international flight rules, 2 years for violating Soviet borders, and 4 years for malicious hooliganism, the time to be served concurrently. Rust has pleaded guilty on the first 2 counts and innocent to the hooliganism. But those permitted inside today indicated the court was not sympathetic to Rust.
Today the judge seemed to be almost scolding him to say, today did you realize that you were putting the lives and health of the people in danger? And it seemed that some people say that he flew over the heads of the people in Red Square only 3 or 4 meters above their heads.
When the Soviet prosecutor emerged, he seemed confident of a conviction tomorrow. Rust's attorney was less sanguine. There's nothing good yet, he said. We'll have to wait. But most of the Soviets we talked to were much more charitable than the prosecution. This man said, let Rust go home.
I think that he will go to prison, but it's stupid because it wasn't criminal.
Public opinion aside, however, this court now seems determined to punish Rust after tomorrow's verdict. And it would now seem the young German's best hope would be an appeal to the Supreme Soviet or to Soviet leader Gorbachev for an early pardon. Walter Rogers, ABC News, Moscow.
When we come back, the battle over Judge Bork begins to heat up.
Computers have revolutionized the way people work. But today, people take them for granted. IBM is one reason they can. IBM innovations over the years have helped make today's computers possible. Innovations like Fortran, the world's most widely used scientific programming language. And computer disk storage, invented by IBM more than 30 years ago, it changed the computer industry by letting people get information quickly. IBM invented relational databases too. So today, people can use simple commands to perform complex operations. 2 IBM scientists have won a Nobel Prize for inventing the scanning tunneling microscope. Now, researchers can examine atoms more clearly than ever before. This microscope is helping IBM develop new computer innovations that someday you'll be taking for granted too.
Need a new muffler for your older car?
Midas size.
They've got mufflers for older cars you don't plan on keeping forever.
Yeah.
Midas your older car and get it right the first time.
No one knows I just got dentures, and I don't want anything to blow it.
Fix-it and forget it. Leading cream. Use Fix-it.
Today on the nomination of Robert Bork to the Supreme Court. The report prepared for Senator Joseph Biden accuses the White House of distorting Bork's record. It says Bork could undo 3 decades of social progress if he is confirmed. The Biden report is the latest salvo in a protracted and bitter fight over the Bork nomination. Here's ABC's Barry Serafin.
The Minnesota State Fair might seem an unlikely setting for a confrontation over the confirmation of Robert Bork. But when Senate Minority Leader Bob Dole, a Bork supporter, arrived there for a news conference today, anti-Bork demonstrators were waiting.
No Bork! No Bork!
All week long, in fact, an anti-abortion group has been using its booth at the fair to urge support of Bork and his opposition to legalized abortion. A pro-choice group a few booths away has been handing out postcards to lobby against Bork, and so has the state Democratic Party. The skirmishes here over Bork are part of an extraordinary battle across the country that's shaping up to be big, expensive, and emotional.
Help us block Bork on the Supreme Court.
For example, abortion rights organizations are collecting petition signatures on the streets of New York. They were joined today in Ohio by the AFL-CIO, NAACP, and others in launching a letter-writing campaign to that state's senators. In Washington, the American Civil Liberties Union has, for only the second time in its history, declared it will fight a Supreme Court nominee.
But if you read all his speeches, you cannot but conclude that if he had been around in the 18th century, he would have been against adding the Bill of Rights to the Constitution.
But the other side is hard at work, too. Law enforcement organizations have rallied around the president and his nominee. The National Right to Work Committee is using its phone bank to attack Bork's critics.
The union bosses are pulling out all the stops. They won't be satisfied until one of their own puppets is appointed.
$2.5 million for newspaper ads supporting Bork and blasting his opponents is being raised by a California group. On Capitol Hill, the American Conservative Union this week sent out mailings to 1,700 newspaper editorial boards. Not far away, mail from both sides is piling up in the offices of the Senate Judiciary Committee. 35,000 pieces so far, much of it aimed at undecided swing vote senators, such as Arizona Democrat Dennis DeConcini.
It doesn't tip you one way or the other in an issue, but you can't ignore the fact that people are writing you in expressing a view.
The battle over Bork is just heating up. No one knows how much, but millions of dollars will be spent in a clash that both sides insist is winnable. Barry Seraphin, ABC News, Washington.
A new study from the Veterans Administration today finds that former Marines who served on the ground in Vietnam are dying of lung cancer and certain lymph cancers at a higher rate than did others who did not serve in the war. The study doesn't pinpoint any reason, but says exposure to Agent Orange might be one cause. A new Census Bureau study released today finds that the big gap between the earnings of men and women comes about mostly because women still predominate in some lower-paying jobs and because they may not have as much work experience as men. Overall, the study says women continue to earn only 70 cents for every dollar earned by men. In tonight's Money Matters on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down, but not by much, about 2.5 points, enough to close just under the 2,600 mark, trading moderate. When we come back, the Pope and America's homosexual Catholics.
When you're working on your American dream, you want it to last forever.
Andersen Windows have helped build American dreams for over 80 years.
We take the time to build the best, that's what we've always been. Come home to quality, come home to Andersen.
Where can you go to buy Andersen Windows? Call 1-800-255-2550.
In 1894, a three-man research agency was created to test electrical wiring. In the decades that followed, it tested and set safety standards for products the world over. Its name, Underwriters Laboratories. Who created Underwriters Laboratories? You're going to be surprised. Your insurance company. We do a lot more than sell insurance.
Pete Menagen is a happy man. But then, no one has a job quite like Pete Menagen's. One where he can release his frustration, act out his aggressions, deal with his anger. Because Pete Menagen works for the world's largest retail testing laboratory at Sears, where he gets a chance to see how well things are really made. Testing them to make sure they're worth every cent you pay for them, if not more, which gives him great satisfaction. So Pete never takes the office home with him.
Sorry, Mr. Minigan.
That's okay, Bobby.
Pete Menagen is a happy man, and what he does for Sears will make you happy too.
What happened to your foot?
Oh, nothing.
Now, more on the Pope in America and a question. Is it possible to be both a Catholic and a practicing homosexual? The Church says no. Homosexual activity is wrong, and that is non-negotiable. But there are thousands of gay Catholics in this country who insist it is the Church that is wrong. And as ABC's Betsy Aaron reports, they'll be demonstrating their convictions while Pope John Paul is here this month.
In the presence of the Pope, we shall not be moved just like a tree.
They demand to be heard. They need to be heard by their church and by their Pope.
Perhaps the question we ought to be asking is, whose church is it anyway?
To stand at the door of the church and essentially close the door because you are gay is an exquisite agony. The rage is overwhelming, but the rage is there as a result of the pain.
From the church in the form of a letter, an indictment. Homosexual activity is intrinsically evil. Those who engage in such activity are disordered.
One is not rejecting gays, one is rejecting behavior that is contrary to Catholic moral teaching.
But the gays believe the two are intertwined.
Well, the gays, like every other Catholic, must accept the teaching of the church. That's a part of what it means to be a Catholic.
That from the Archbishop. This from a gay parishioner.
How many times am I going to let this institution kick me, insult me, tell me that I'm less than human?
In New York, the Archdiocese has ordered an end to masses for homosexual groups. The masses continue outside the church. But in San Francisco, there is church-allowed mass for homosexuals.
You are the God who made us and loves us, and so we pray.
It hasn't been easy for the Catholic Church here in San Francisco to deal with its large, openly gay community. It's a relationship based on exploration and at times discomfort for both sides. The question arises, why not leave the church? Join a Christian sect with more compatible views towards homosexuality. For practicing gay Catholics, that is not an option.
We're the good Catholic men and women that our parents and our church helped us to become.
I was born a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. I have a need for a spiritual life, and it has all been in the context of the Catholic Church.
Even though the Catholic Church is a church which condemns the homosexual lifestyle and only reluctantly ministers to AIDS patients.
Lord, I would like to pray for my friends David, Neil, and John, who all recently died of AIDS and are now in your heart. Lord, hear our prayer.
A plea to the Pope, who during his time in San Francisco will visit with church-selected AIDS patients.
I think his visit is a way to make a statement about AIDS and not make a statement about gays within the church.
Michael Smith is a gay Catholic who manages the Names Project, honoring those who've died of AIDS. For them, so many Catholics among them, this quilt is being pieced together, name by name. Project volunteers are trying to arrange for the Pope to view the quilt because there is a message in this quilt for the church.
Wake up. That's what we're saying to the church. Wake up and change the way you look at people who are gay and the way you treat people who have AIDS.
There is little hope on the part of those who plan to protest that this Pope and this church will change its views towards homosexuality. If you could ask the Pope for one thing, what would it be?
Understanding and love.
There will be vigils, there will be prayer services, there will be marches. All protests by proud, unbowed homosexual Catholics trying to reach their Pope.
John Paul, open yourself to the spirit that is within us. Christ would do no less.
Betsy Aaron, ABC News, San Francisco.
Next week, more of the issues facing the Pope during his visit to the United States, and we'll be back in a moment.
Still no word. Recently, 10 best-selling latex paints were brought together in an independent test to take the guesswork out of finding a quality flat wall paint.
Hot, huh?
Each was tested on the toughest measurement of all, scrub resistance. The winner?
Glidden Spread Satin. Thank you very much.
New improved Glidden Spread Satin. It outscrubbed them all, and it's on sale now.
Doc, who came in second? Does it really matter?
Glidden. Your paint should be this good.
Got the same old bowl
And the same old spoon.
but here's a tasty fiber breakthrough that's brand new. It's the traffic. It's for brand new. It's a breakthrough. I said for brand new.
Kellogg
Kellogg's Nutrific blends the goodness of wheat, corn, barley, and oat brands.
It's nutritious.
In dark, hearty flakes.
It's terrific.
With almond-covered raisins and almond slivers.
It's nutrific. It's all brand new.
GM's big one is going fast.
They're going fast.
Car buyers, truck buyers, better hurry. GM's big one is going fast. 1.9%, the best GM AC financing plan ever.
I'm not waiting anymore.
Or up to $1,000 cash back. And look at the selection. Most new 1987 Chevrolets, Pontiacs, Oldsmobiles, Buicks, GMC and Chevy S trucks, plus Cadillac Cimarrons.
They're going fast.
So make your deal now.
What are we waiting for?
Tonight on 2020, Barbara Walters takes you on a very personal visit to China. The sights, sounds, magic, and mystery of its people. A special 2020 tonight.
And on Nightline, a small town terrorized by a rapist. People there say constitutional rights come second to finding the man.
We began this evening with what's being described as a disastrous fire situation in the West. We end with one of the men whose job it is to spot those fires before they get out of control. In light of the fires today, his job would seem to be critical. But as ABC's Greg Dobbs reports, he's soon to be outmoded.
Bill Ellis climbs 152 steps each morning to the top of Devil's Head, Colorado. But where once there were 1,600 like him, today he's the last man in the Rockies, one of the last in the whole nation, paid all summer long to keep climbing, to keep an eye peeled for forest fires, to keep alive the lore of mountaintop lookouts.
It's a service that needs to be done. It's fading out quickly. We're not many of us left.
Above the birds, above the trees, and most important, above the fires, Bill Ellis and a handful of others are the ones who rigorously follow every ridge line, who painstakingly distinguish fog and haze, dust and glimmering sunlight from the smoke of an uncontrolled fire.
If someone else finds it before I do, then I feel like I've let the Forest Service down. I haven't done my job.
From his perch, Bill Ellis scans 250,000 square miles. In his best year here, 1985, he spotted 110 smokes before they turned into raging fires.
You have to know how to read a map to be able to determine where the fire is and be able to send the people to the fire.
10,000 feet high, Ellis is subject to certain dangers. Everything he touches must be grounded, insulated against lightning. Another danger, automation.
Eventually we'll be replaced. It's just a matter of time.
A matter of time before electronics takes all but the day's last function from human hands. A matter of time before this breed is extinct. Greg Dobbs, ABC News, Devil's Head, Colorado.
That's our report on World News Tonight. Tomorrow, our Person of the Week. I'm Richard Threlkeld. Good night.
From ABC, this has been World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
They are people who have touched someone, hurt someone, changed someone. People you should know more about. Person of the Week, tomorrow on ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
That looks great.